dukes weren't hazardous. She's only 17, made us curious. It was a carefree time. How about we jump back and rewind? We were living on Winger and a prayer, just garbage pail kids with mullets and big hair. Let's open up another pack. Gen X wants their future back. Break out the denim jackets with faded band patches. Share memories Polaroid captured. It's the Gen X marks the spot podcast.
Hey Gen Xers, how's everyone feeling today? Because it's that time of year when sickness just rears its ugly head. And I woke up this morning and my youngest was like, I don't feel good, Dad. My first thought was, I should go see Doc Baker, hitch up the old horse and buggy, and head on into town. And then reality hit, of course. And I remembered I'd probably better settle to taken to a Med Express. However, the copay was a little bit high, so I told him to suck it up, Buttercup, because those doctors, they're not going to accept payment in freshly baked bread and eggs. Man, times on the prairie were much simpler. And speaking of prairie life and kids, our guest today is Wendi Lou Lee, who you may know as Baby Grace Ingalls from Little House on the Prairie. Can you believe it has been 50 years of Little House on the Prairie? Correction, Wendi did correct me. It's 51 years of Little House on the Prairie. And if that's not the definition of timeless television, I don't know what is. And you know what's really cool? Wendi got to work with the legendary Michael Landon. We're going to talk about that in today's episode. And also, she never had to deal with Nellie Olson. Talk about perfect timing. There is more to Wendi's story than just working on Little House on the Prairie. She went from being one of the most recognizable babies on television, along with her twin sister Brenda, to raising her own family, writing devotionals, and staying connected to that Little House legacy. And she's also a part of the brand new documentary Little House Homecoming that premiered last month, where she and the cast traveled to real places that inspired Laura Ingalls Wilder's books. And to top that off, she has her own new devotional book out called Story by Story, and it's available now. So, boys and girls, Gen Xers, my apologies, grab your bonnets and pull up your suspenders and sit down by a nice old campfire because we are hitching a ride back to the prairie with Wendi Lou Lee. Here's my interview. Wendi, thank you so much for being part of the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast.
Oh, thank you, Joe. So nice to be here with you.
When I saw Little House on the Prairie was going to be turning 50 years old, I was flabbergasted. It just seems like for me, I was at home with my parents, laying on the floor, resting on my beanbag, watching the show, and here it is 50 years later. I don't know where the time went.
It makes me feel really old, actually. People go, wait a minute, are you 50? I'm like, no. I didn't start at the beginning, remember?
Right. Well, you started, you were a couple months old, 9 months maybe, something like that?
Yes, 9 months old. My sister and we started in season 5. So the first episode of season 5 is our first debut episode. Yeah.
What is your earliest memory that you have of being on the set of Little House?
Well, I will say that there are a lot of memories, and I'm not really sure which ones are first. Because we went, every day, and there was that repetition. I'll tell you just that repetition story is that every time I'm probably 3, I'm thinking, because that's probably about the time that this started to form in my mind. But when we would go to work, we would wake up and say, Mom, are we going to work today? Because we knew what that meant. That meant a box of donuts at the front door, and we would get one. It's not something that my mom would tell us about as we were growing up. Like one day I said, Mom, do you remember that? And she goes, Oh my gosh, yes. Like, how do you remember that? You were probably 3 years old. But actual filming the show, I would say most of our memories come from season 8, and we're about 4.5 years old. The Christmas episode was like, I remember that day. We collected some snow and took it home. Like, I remember that we had never been in the loft before, and it was the only time that Baby Grace ever got to go in the loft with, the big kids. So
Right.
are certain episodes, Days of Sunshine, Days of Sorrow, when the tornado takes out Laura and Almanzo's house. Like that was a huge episode for us, walking up to the house with Melissa and then running away. So I walked up to the house with Melissa, was having the conversation. My sister ran away. I mean, we remember those like monumental big filming moments, but that's our last season. That's just right before we're done. I don't know. It was incredible.
Well, you're making me remember now, and I do remember those episodes. I kind of like, as a kid, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was afraid a tornado was going to come and take our house away.
Yeah.
But little did we know that was all the magic of TV back then.
Hollywood magic. Wow, they do it. They do it good. Yeah. Even way back in the 70s. It's pretty incredible what they did.
Are you taking part in the 50th anniversary reunion?
Technically, the 50th anniversary was in 2024. So technically, the 50th anniversary reunion is over.
Hmm.
We are now in our 51 year. But there is was a huge tour, and that was when they, were filming the Little House Homecoming, which just like premiered for Thanksgiving weekend. So we're gonna just ride on this 50th for probably a while. That's how it goes. But yeah, the 50th was amazing. I mean, it started in March with kind of the debut 50th happening in Simi Valley, which is actually where we filmed the show. There was a tour through the property and where the facades actually were when we were filming. There was also a bunch of interiors, which they basically replicated what it was on the show, which was absolutely breathtaking. I mean, you just went right back to being there filming Little House on the Prairie. But then it just followed up with just events all over the country, and yeah, it was amazing.
Well, I know for me, Little House on the Prairie sure shaped my childhood. I mean, it was all about family values. Unfortunately, nowadays, we don't have that on TV. What does it mean to you to have been part of something that impacted so many kids' lives?
It's like unthinkable, really, because we always say the very young kids on the show would say, "How did we get on Little House on the Prairie? We could have been like on Married with Children." Like, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah.
There's not words to describe how that even like resonates inside, to think that we were, because we didn't have any like acting experience. I mean, we weren't really chosen for our ability, besides that we were the right age and we had the right color hair. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's amazing. And, I grew up on Little House on the Prairie. I mean, I remember running home from school and I had to get my homework done, because if I didn't by 4 o'clock, I didn't get to watch Little House. And so I was definitely a generation of the reruns. I did watch season 8, like the last part of it live, but that was just because finally our bedtime was a little bit later. So, it definitely shaped my childhood completely, and just the values and the family and community and faith. Like I feel like I kind of stepped into that world and never left it.
I was going to
Yeah.
talk to you about that. You have written 3 books now. Your
Yes.
your newest one just came out, I believe, and it's called Story by Story, and it's regarding devotional passages in the Bible.
Yes. Well, so this is the first book that's not really like directly connected to Little House on the Prairie. My other two are actually very focused on the show. But this one is a devotional, an interactive devotional. Basically, I just pick up like 12 stories from the Gospels and then just like walk through them with the reader. It's almost like a workbook. So this is just a like integrating faith into your life. And any Little House fan is not against it, I would say, because
Right.
this is what the show was based on. And so yeah, it's kind of like my first off-topic book. So yeah, it's been super fun. I'm excited.
Going back to what you said about the show and having the morals and the values and such, and you had carried that over to your own personal life, you're kind of living the name of Grace that you portrayed on TV.
Yeah, I'm trying to. I have a kind of a social media page, and it's called Baby Grace in Real Life. And I say this is my real life, and I just let people into my real life, and we talk about Grace a lot. So yeah, it's interesting how it all kind of, good thing I wasn't Nellie.
Right?
Oh, Alison Arngrim could be Nellie. So
Or Nancy.
or Nancy's even worse. Oh yeah, totally.
Right. That's funny. Now, back in 2015, you had somewhat of a scare. It was discovered you had a brain tumor. I'm sure your faith and your devotion carried you through that.
Definitely. Definitely did. And that kind of was a turning point for me to to start writing, to actually start sharing more about my personal life. Because before that, it was really just going to events and, signing autographs and meeting people, but I didn't really open up my personal like faith journey with people. And after that, I just got really brave and was open to just this is the real me. And yeah, so that's when I started writing and wrote my first book, a Prairie devotional, which is like quotes from actual episodes. And each entry is basically just talking about an episode and what we learn about following God through what the words actually were said on the show, which is amazing. And then my memoir, Red Tail Feathers, is basically my brain tumor journey. It's talking about the chapters of your life and how you can find grace in every chapter of your life. So it goes through the chapters of my life, how I got in the show and all the different points. And it kind of ends with this brain tumor experience and how I could see grace, goodness, God in every chapter. If like you have the eyes to see it, you can see it. So it's kind of one of those like, look at the chapters of your life and how can you see the good in your life? Because sometimes we just get bogged down by hardship and challenges and struggles. And so it's really a different perspective of trying to, see the things in your life, the highs and the lows, and just be grateful.
Well, I'm definitely glad there's more actors out there like you who are not afraid to show their spiritual side. That's something that is truly missing, especially a lot in Hollywood. And, it took me about 48 years on a faith journey to find who I am and where I'm at in my life. So I'm appreciative of you putting the book out there like that and talking about your experiences.
Yeah, no, it's been great. And it's been a real connector to Little House fans and brain tumor patients. Like when you have something in common, people are more open to hear your story. And I'm more open to hear their stories because we have things in common. So yeah, it's definitely a connector, which I love. So
I mean, it's almost as if it was an episode out of Little House on the Prairie with Mary's blindness and then you dealing with this in real life. Those were serious issues back then, just like yours is a serious issue. It kind of goes and shows how the show taught viewers about family, about community, about resilience and faith.
yeah, and that's the grit to get through life's hardest challenges are like it's a real thing, like you can totally fold and just not keep going. And Little House taught us to pull up our bootstraps and keep going and not give up and have perseverance. And so It is. It's very interesting how all of our stories, like you really have the choice. Are you going to give in and give up here, or are you going to keep going and keep walking and put one foot in front of the other? And I think Little House definitely taught its viewers, like they gave them a snapshot of this way of living, and not folding to the hardest parts of life because we're all going to have them. We have the ability to overcome so much if we have the right challenges or channels in line. Like if we have the right perspective, we can overcome challenges. It just depends if we have that and we have the support and we have, in my case, faith was a huge thing. I just sometimes think I don't know if I could have gotten through that without my faith. It would have been really hard. It was hard already. But yeah, like when you're willing to surrender to a higher power, that's like foundational to even being able to have faith in someone greater than yourself. And so definitely, and it's hard to accept help and it's hard to say I can't do this on my own. So definitely I think I it's a huge component to actually having a faith that's real, because we can't have it all together all the time. There's no way.
My minister always says we go through seasons and everybody has their own different season. And I kind of follow that to a T, like, yeah, these 3 months were my season of whatever, that good things happen. And in the next couple of months, I might be going through something, but I always look ahead and I always have faith that things are going to turn around. And for me, I don't want to say I got all of that from watching Little House on the Prairie, but it was also from my upbringing. My family was very faith-based. And, I tried to carry that through my whole life. But, there are times when you kind of shy away from that. And I'm just glad now I'm 51 now, but around the age of 48, I really got back to being spiritual and, putting my faith in God. So that to me is something that I'm not afraid to share with anyone anymore. Let's talk a little bit about Michael Landon. How was it working with such a legend?
Well, he was amazing. He was just this calm presence. He knew how to work with kids for sure. So we had this very, very young. We were probably 10 months old. It was our very first like photo shoot on like the wood pile. And they're sitting us on the wood pile. I don't know why they thought that two little, babies could sit on the wood pile and stay there for a picture. And we're crying and not looking and not having it at all. And the photographer is trying to get this picture because this is supposed to be our fan mail picture. This is like
Yeah.
the middle of season 5. And Michael just like swooped in and calmed us down and made faces. And all of a sudden, and so the photographer gets this great picture with Michael and the two of us on the woodpile. And then he like slinks back and they capture the perfect picture. Like that's kind of how he was. He just brought this warmth and ease to any situation. He would make jokes and do little practical jokes if the kids were like the older kids, if things were a little heavy or he needed to break the ice, he would do whatever he needed to do to capture what he needed to capture. And that's just how he was. He was just amazing. I say that we were either, on Pa's hip in the high chair or maybe being carried around by Melissa Gilbert because that's who really was with us. We didn't have any interactions with Melissa Sue, Mary. She went blind like the episode after we were born. And so we had no interactions really with her. Carrie was older, but not old enough to really take care of us. So there's not a lot of scenes with Carrie, with, the Greenbush twins. But yeah, that was those were our 3 kind of people that really we had almost, I would say, 95% 95% of our scenes with is, Ma, Pa, and Laura. Those were our kind of people. So,
Are you still in touch with Melissa Gilbert nowadays?
yes, once in a while, sometimes she'll go to an event. She doesn't go to a lot of events, but I would say, maybe once every couple years or so. Yeah, I mean, I don't have her on speed dial, but if I wanted to get a hold of her, I could.
No, no, I get it. Now, who had more screen time? Was it you or your sister, Brenda?
I don't know. We worked the same amount. So basically, how it worked is we would go to work and my mom would get the call sheet to see what the different scenes they were going to shoot. And they would decide, the assistant director, or assistant producer Miles, and my mom would say, who's going first, Brenda or Wendy? Just depending on, our moods that day and what they needed to
Right.
film. And one of us would work our full 4 hours, 2 of those hours in the dressing room, 2 of those hours are on set. And then that twin would clock out and the next one would clock in. So it's not like they go show up and say, I need a happy baby. Which one's more happy? And take them. And then, oh, I need a sad baby. Can you bring me a sad baby? It was really like we had this much time to work. And once we had worked our, 4 hours each, we had to clock out and go home. Like there are like strict child labor laws, and Little House, Michael was very, very, very adamant about sticking to those rules with kids. I mean, he had like more than half of the cast were children. And so he ran a really tight ship, and in the mornings and early afternoons did most of the shots with the children so that they were gone by, 4 or 5 o'clock. And then if they needed to do close-ups and all that with adults, they would do that after the kids were all gone. So yeah, so we work the same. I don't know if you can really tell, like our checks are basically about the same, which are very little, but we're all pretty much in every episode that we are featured in. We're both in to some extent. So
After Little House ended, you kind of graduated from Hollywood. Did
yes, we went to kindergarten.
right. Do you miss being an actress or an actor? Any thoughts of getting back into acting, or are you just kind of content and happy where you're at right now?
Well, so when Little House was over, we did have an agent and we were going on some auditions. I talk about all this in a chapter in my memoir. And actually, the very first audition we went to was for McDonald's. And we were sitting in there, just Brenda and I, and the director, I think, or producer, I'm not sure, maybe it's the same person. And he showed us a picture of Ronald McDonald and said, so what do you think? And we were like terrified. And we were like, I don't know what to say. Like we were like, we never been to McDonald's. We never had a Happy Meal. We didn't even know who Ronald McDonald was. And so we did not get that part, obviously. The next interview or audition was for a bank, the Bank of Texas. We did this. That was our only commercial we ever did. So it was basically like a telephone banking commercial, when that was like brand new. So that was a 1-day shoot, really long day. My mom was also pregnant with my little sister, and they just didn't treat us anything like Little House on the Prairie. And my mom did not know what to expect, but she didn't expect them to like not even care what our names were. And so we left that audition and or that 1-day shoot, and my mom just called up the agent and said, I think we're done. I don't think we're going to do this. Like, I had an older sister. I have my twin sister. We had a little sister. My mom was like, how in the heck am I even going to make this work? And this atmosphere is not something that I actually want my girls to be part of. And so at, 5 years old, we were done being actors and we went to kindergarten, and then we just grew up as normal kids. So it's not like I even really thought about it. It was kind of like this really cool thing that we got to do. And I say to people that my only acting career besides Little House was every church musical, talent show, and things like that. So lip syncs, like that's my acting career, really. So yeah, I don't know. I think that the last 20 years, traveling with the cast and meeting fans and getting to do all the kind of like events and PR work, if you can call it that, that has been just so fun. It's like I get to be an actor for a weekend whenever I go away, and it's like this is really cool. I don't know if you did it day in and day out if it would be like as exciting because it's hard. There's a lot of rejection for
Yeah.
actors. I have, a few friends that are still, pursuing that, and it's not an easy profession to do full time. Yeah.
Kind of keeps you grounded.
Yeah. It's kind of fun to go sign autographs for the weekend and get a lot of attention. But we laugh because we could be like, 1,000 people in line waiting to meet us. And then the next morning we're in the airport and we're just going through security like everybody else and nobody has any idea who we are. So, there's you totally get humbled too. You're like, okay, nobody has any idea who I am.
Well, if you could share one message with a new generation of viewers who are discovering the show for the first time, what do you think it would be?
Oh, well, I think the biggest thing for new viewers is this the idea and the openness to realize that life was much slower back then and that they actually can learn a lot from a slow life. If you remember, I don't know if you remember, but when you're watching Little House on the Prairie and there is a shot of the wagon coming down the road, if you count how long it takes for that wagon to get down the road, it's like 10 times as long as what you're watching now on any other show. And there is a peace-filled vibe to Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
And it lets you breathe. It lets you think. It doesn't move from the scene to scene. It's so much more thought-provoking. And for this young generation of viewers who are thrown so much information so fast, no wonder they are anxious and depressed and stressed out. Like, I think for these young viewers, it's like just take a breath and slow down and watch this beautiful story of this young girl embracing this prairie life. You know what I mean? It's just so refreshing. And I think that for these young kids, once they experience Little House and they feel this calmness and this like warm family atmosphere, like they really can't help but love it. And that's why we see so many young viewers. I can't tell you, like at events, most of the people that come are young kids with their moms and grandmas with them, in tow. So it's definitely something that is not going away. This generation is loving Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah. I've had my oldest son watch Little House on the Prairie, and it's kind of funny because I grew up on a farm and we still have our farm, and I tell him stories about my grandfather, and I always compare my grandfather to Charles Ingalls before he had watched the show. And I'll give you a quick example. My senior year of high school, I got kicked out for 3 days because I was fighting. And lo and behold, we all had homes on the farm. So there was a tap on my bedroom window with my grandfather's cane. He had me come out and hoeing the garden by hand. We had about 10 acres. And when he wasn't looking, I probably pulled a Willie Olson on him and broke the hoe handle over my knee and told him I had hit a rock. And literally, here's the part about Charles Ingalls. My grandfather was sitting on the ground, leaning back against an apple tree with his straw hat down and literally a piece of straw in his mouth. Never thought he saw anything. I go over to him. I'm like, well, I guess I'm done for the day. He looks at me and he goes, what happened? I said, oh, the hoe handle broke. He goes, really? I'm like, yep. And I start walking away and he goes, where are you going? I said, I'm going home, like I said. He goes, the hoe's not broke, the handle is. I had maybe about 6 inches of the handle left. And he had me bent over hoeing the garden until he said I was done and I could go get a newer hoe. Yeah. So those were the lessons not only did Little House on the Prairie teach, but it kind of rolled over into my childhood. And I'm sure it rolled over to a lot of Generation X's childhood as well.
Yeah, definitely. That does sound like Charles.
Yeah, so got away with nothing. And I think those were the lessons learned, that you can't pull the wool over in an adult's eye or try to get away with something. And unfortunately, nowadays, we don't have that.
Parents aren't as present, or they're distracted.
Is there any message you would like to send to not so much the newer viewers, but any message you would like to send to the viewers who have become fans of Little House on the Prairie as they were growing up in the 70s and 80s?
Oh, yes. So, I mean, I would just say, like, thank you for watching. For Little House fans, like, you all have made this show last for 50 years, because without the fans, we wouldn't be doing this. Whenever we're at events, I always say, we wouldn't be here without you, because they're always like, thank you so much for coming. And we're like, thank you, because this show wouldn't be what it is without the loyal fans all over the world who watch Little House on the Prairie faithfully. I can't tell you how many people tell me over and over and over again, I watch Little House on the Prairie every single day. And I was like, that's wild. So it's really just thank you.
And I'm going to say the same thing for you. Thank you for being a part of a show that was so iconic to me growing up.
Yes. Well, it's totally a pleasure. Like, what a kick, right? I can't believe that I got to be part of such a legend of a show. It's amazing.
All right. Well, hey, anything else you wanted to talk about your books or your website before we go?
Sure. Yeah. If you want any more information, you can check me out on my website, wendyloulee.com.
All right. Well, hey, thank you, Wendi, for being a part of the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast.
You're so welcome. Thanks for having me.
One incredible conversation with Wendi Lou Lee. You know, when we started this episode, I joked about Doc Baker and the horse-drawn buggies, but hearing Wendi's story really puts things into perspective about what truly matters in life. Here is someone who had the chance to stay in Hollywood, to chase that fame and spotlight, but instead, her family chose something different. They chose a normal childhood. They chose simplicity. And isn't that exactly what Little House on the Prairie was all about? Those values of faith, family, and living a meaningful life. Wendi went from being Baby Grace on one of television's most beloved shows to being a regular kid, going to high school, going to college, getting married, raising her own family. She chose the prairie life, if you will, over Hollywood life. But when life threw her a curveball in 2015, she faced a brain tumor and had to undergo surgery. That's the kind of challenges that changes you, that tests everything you believe in. And Wendi came through it with even stronger faith and a deeper sense of purpose. She never truly left her Little House family values behind. And let's not forget, Wendi is now an accomplished author herself, just much like Laura Ingalls Wilder. Her books, A Prairie Devotional, Red Tail Feathers, and her new devotional, Story by Story, you can check those out on wendylouleeshop.etsy.com. They're all about carrying forward those same values that made Little House so special. Wendi's journey is a testament to resilience, faith, and staying true to what matters. She really is living proof that you can honor your past while building a beautiful present. So thank you, Wendi, for sharing your story with us today on Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. And to take a chapter out of Little House on the Prairie, may your days be simple, your faith be strong, and your heart be full. Thanks for listening. Peace out. Props, everyone. I'm Joe Augustine, your host for Gen X Marks the Spot podcast from the Wherever I May Roam studio.